There have been many success stories in golf. Ben Hogan, Mickey Wright, Mo Norman, Lee Trevino. Included in that list was a man who, after the King, the Golden Bear, and before Tiger, dominated the tour. He had the looks, the women, the dance moves, the perfect diet, the clothes, the money, and the success. He was the best golfer of his era. Hell, he even had the coolest name, Shooter McGavin. The 1996 tour season was shaping up to be his best. Shooter would win 10 times that year and place second 6. He had complete control of the sport, but strangely, the focus wasn't on him. That focus shifted to a new player, Happy Gilmore, somebody who would hammer a golf ball as far as possible. Because Happy brought in new fans, sponsorships, and better ratings, the tour put the attention on him and looked the other way regarding his rule breaking, which was vast, including fighting Bob Barker, nearly decapitating a cameraman with a flagstick, and strokes not being counted as they should. This distilled a hatred from Shooter McGavin towards Happy, one which would set the stage for his eventual downfall. Even though he couldn't see it, the tour would be responsible for ending McGavin's greatness, not Happy Gilmore. In any case, Shooter's disdain started when his old mentor, who said he was stepping away from the pro game, arrived with his new protege, Happy Gilmore. It created bad blood from the beginning. When that mentor, Chubbs, died from mysterious circumstances, which was first reported as an accident but would later end up in court, that hatred grew stronger. Everything came to a head when they battled for a gold jacket.
Gold jacket, green jacket, who gives a shit?
At the Tour Championship. This is how one of the best in history was about to lose everything he worked for, and how the tour he was a part of ensured it would happen.
This man is destroying golf.
The board thinks that might be extreme, considering the fact that our ratings were the highest that we've ever had.
Shooter McGavin was always destined for greatness. It was said he could have accomplished whatever he set his mind to. In high school, he was popular, a bold, somewhat cocky individual who, at a second's notice, would bust into a dance. These dance moves would develop a rhythm in his golf swing, and speaking of golf, it was just one of the sports he played. But it turned into a true passion because he enjoyed the country club atmosphere. Shooter remembers the moment he knew he was good at golf.
They were making fun of me and everything, and then to shut him up, spanked one right in the hole, got an ace.
After years of hitting balls, practicing his short game, sleeping with the higher-ups at the country club, and developing a killer instinct, Shooter left Yale University with dreams of making it to the pro circuit. He did just that, qualifying through Q School on the first attempt. McGavin was already 25, but he would be victorious multiple times in his first season. As the years went by, he would win everything except the gold jacket, given to the golfer who won the Tour Championship. The Professional Golfers Tour was in a decent spot during this time. They marketed their sport and events around the skills of Shooter McGavin, but were also desperately looking for fresh blood. This desperation set the grounds for what would later unfold. After a stellar season in 1995 with 8 wins, Shooter went into 96 primed to win that jacket. The season started like usual. McGavin went to work, winning 3 out of the first 4 events. Shooter then watched the Waterbury Open, a bizarre tournament granting the winner a 1-year exemption to play on the Pro Tour. Here, McGavin saw Happy Gilmore, a 400-yard driving machine who picked up golf less than a week before. Happy was different than Shooter, but quite an interesting person. He is known for his carefree attitude and love for Subway. Before golf, he played hockey, but the people around him said that
all you ever talk about is being a pro hockey player, but there's a problem. You're not any good.
Shooter's most significant realization that day was not Gilmore's long drives or ability to beat up spectators, but that Chubbs Peterson was mentoring him. Chubbs used to mentor Shooter on fitness, training to increase club head speed, and how to develop the mindset to win. That partnership worked perfectly until Chubbs stepped away, saying he was done with the pro game, wanting to teach amateurs. Yet only 4 months later, he showed up with Happy. This instantly created resentment from McGavin towards Peterson and Gilmore, putting a target on Happy's back, and would develop into one of the most insane rivalries in sporting history. Happy would win that Waterbury Open, punching his ticket to the Pro Tour. He did so with a caddy who would become a professional golfer years later. He had this to say about his time with Gilmore.
Whenever things got kind of tense, he would say some stupid dad joke.
The AT&T Invitational in Portland was the first tournament where both men were in the field. Before the event, as was a custom for the rookies, Shooter hit Gilmore with the
Why don't you just meet me at the 9th green at 9, Gilmore?
When the event started, Shooter had to deal with an incompetent caddy who, on hole 11, recommended that he chip with a 5-iron from this lie to that pin placement, which would have no chance of stopping close to the hole. McGavin fired him on the spot after using a wedge and draining the chip. However, the caddy decided to complete the round without pay. After 3 days, Happy Gilmore wasn't dead last, but still went out in the final group on Sunday because the tour, who was about to go all in on him, wanted to show off their new prized possession. This was the very first incident of the tour going against McGavin, the man who was dominating the sport. Shooter would win the event, making it the 4th time in 4 years he had won there, the four-peat, and he joined Tiger Woods, Walter Hagen, Gene Sarazen, and young Tom Morris as the only players in history so far to have accomplished this feat. Happy would garner quite the following this week, but he would also summon a talent relations hearing with the president after nearly killing a camera operator and assaulting a man. You'd think Gilmore's golf career was about to sink faster than the views of my Payne Stewart video, but no. Talent relations, the marketing department, and the networks knew the league had struck gold with such a colorful player, so they all lobbied to make sure Happy stayed on the tour. This would cause immense anger from Shooter because he couldn't understand how Gilmore was allowed to remain. But there was a bigger problem brewing for the best golfer. The pro circuit now had a bunch of new fans who didn't necessarily care about golf, they just wanted to see Happy. The Cleveland Classic was the first tournament where they arrived, and Shooter realized this would be a problem. For instance, a crazed fan with a nail in his head, Happy Gilmore's ex-boss, Mr. Larson, bent McGavin's 9-iron on the first tee. The heckling also started, but would only worsen in the coming weeks. Still, Shooter was victorious, making that 5 wins in 6 starts. He got 2nd place at the Michelob Invitational and iced the field in Dallas the following week, his 3rd year in a row winning there. Under strict orders from a woman he wanted to sleep with named Virginia, Gilmore calmed down much of his rule breaking, although he still didn't follow the dress code. He also beat up an alligator in a place that didn't look like Florida, but we'll call it Florida anyway. The same alligator that bit Chubbs' hand off. Shooter would place 2nd a few weeks in a row and return to the winner's circle at the Bell Invitational. The fans continued to be his most significant issue, as he was heckled on every shot and saw things that kept him up at night.
I saw 2 big fat naked bikers in the woods off 17 having sex. How am I supposed to chip with that going on, Doug?
Shooter McGavin wouldn't understand it then, but the tour deserved most of his hostility. This brings us to the Pepsi Pro-Am, a tournament that paired celebrities with golfers. Happy would play alongside Bob Barker. McGavin wanted to give him a taste of his own medicine, so he hired Donald to verbally assault Happy Gilmore. Donald did as he was told and caused a real problem by taunting Happy. You may ask why Donald was never ejected from the grounds. Once again, that falls on the tour, which allowed fans to say whatever they wanted during play, as evidenced by what McGavin has gone through. They just wanted more ticket sales and youthful sponsors. During the tournament, Happy got extremely heated and punched Bob Barker. A fight ensued, which left Gilmore unconscious. As a result of the scrap, Happy was suspended for a month and fined $25,000. Shooter couldn't believe it and was enraged. Once again, in his mind, they let Happy off easily. Doug, the tour president, explains why Gilmore was only suspended.
Our ratings were the highest that we've ever had.
In that meeting, Shooter heard about how Happy's grandma's house would be auctioned. By the way, the whole reason Happy Gilmore started playing golf was to get her home back. Being quite the real estate mogul, Shooter couldn't pass up such an opportunity and purchased the house at the event. Gilmore was pissed off, and it was there the two came up with an ultimatum. The tour championship was next week. If Shooter beat Happy, he would quit the tour. But if Gilmore won, McGavin would give him grandma's house. Not only that, but the two would be playing for the prestigious gold jacket. What follows is one of history's strangest and most incredible golf tournaments. Death, rule breaking, and the end of an unbelievable career. Before the start of the tournament, Chubbs fell out of Happy's apartment window and died on impact. This death would later be investigated because of the mysterious circumstances involved. Gilmore, who was present, would say it was an accident, and a team of forensic scientists would try to figure out what happened in the coming weeks. Shooter McGavin dedicated his performance at the Tour Championship to his old mentor. Going into the event, he was the Tour's leading money winner again, having 10 wins this season, while Happy had 0. The two would be paired together on all 4 days. Their game was drastically different. Happy was a hit-it-hard type of golfer, whereas Shooter was much more controlled and systematic. He wasn't that long, but he was consistently in the fairway. It was his short game and putting, though, that really stood out. Happy was a terrible putter, until a recent lesson from the now-deceased Chubbs. After day 1, Shooter was in the lead. On day 2, he shows us his skills from the sand, and Happy keeps making putts. After 3 days, incredibly, Gilmore was winning. For the first time all season, he held a lead. Tired of being heckled while his opponents got radio silence, Shooter called in his buddy Donald again to try and even up the playing field. Of course, Donald, recently released from prison for assault with a pair of safety scissors, decided to take matters into his own hands. He got into a car, ran over 3 course marshals, and magically got it onto the first fairway, driving it right into the back of Happy Gilmore. Happy was injured, but he could still play, although his swing would suffer. The long hitter was now driving 100 yards less than he was before. On the 8th hole, after hooking it next to a pond, he faced a challenging situation. He was 3 strokes back of McGavin and needed to pull off something special. He did not. Gilmore swings at the ball 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Then the ball glides into the water. Happy would drop it from there and send his approach close to the pin, making the putt. Unbelievably, he would only drop a shot with the bogey 5. But how is that possible? A swing at the ball counts as a stroke as long as you intend to hit the ball. It doesn't matter if you whiff or not. Not to mention, the ball moves around quite a bit. The tour should have counted these swings, but they only counted the one where the ball went into the pond. Shooter was 5 under leading the tournament, and Happy, realistically, scored a quintuple bogey 9, putting him miles out of contention with no chance of winning. McGavin didn't watch Gilmore miss the ball because he was in the middle of the fairway. With a tour official watching each group, he relayed to the scoreboard that Happy only dropped 1 shot. On the next hole, Gilmore hooks one into the bush. Now, watch where the ball ends up. After talking to Grandma and going into his happy place, he prepares to take his second shot, but look where the ball is. Nowhere near where it stopped. With no fans in that area, one may conclude that Happy, or more likely, someone from the tour, moved his ball to get a better angle through the trees. Happy Gilmore's body would magically heal after hearing the sweet sounds of Chubb's singing, and he would suddenly regain his power, making a comeback, draining putt after putt. On 14, Shooter, who wasn't acting or looking like himself, topped the ball into the water, but still managed to save par. Even the fans who continued pretending they were at a rock concert couldn't shake McGavin, but Happy kept gaining ground. Incredibly, by the par 3 18th, they were tied at 5 under. Gilmore hits his ball 15 feet away from the pin on the final hole. Shooter sends his ball into the fans. He goes to find that it landed on Larson's fat foot, who, at this point, still hasn't bought Shooter a new 9-iron. The rule back then was to play the ball as it lies, which would get changed after this tournament. McGavin hit it off Larson's foot, and with the pressure of that elusive gold jacket looming, he had this putt to save par. Gilmore now has a chance to win, but before he goes, the TV tower falls in front of him. Happy was in his element. That long night of mini-golfing with Chubbs was about to pay off. He creatively saw a way to send this ball on a collision course with greatness, and somehow, someway, incredibly, he would sink the putt. Grandma's house as well as the gold jacket would be his. Shooter, who was at his breaking point and did not know about Happy's scoring discrepancies, lost it, grabbing the only thing he couldn't have and started running. The unhinged monster, Mr. Larson, and a mob of 50 people beat the hell out of McGavin, injuring him to the point that he could never play golf the same way again. The Tour Championship was over, and it looked to have its winner, but investigations, DUIs, and prison time all followed in its wake, destroying both Shooter McGavin and Happy Gilmore. The Professional Golfers Tour had one hell of a mess to clean up. Happy celebrated his big victory, but it wouldn't last long. Immense pressure fell on the tour to explain how Happy Gilmore's swings at the ball on number 8 didn't count, and how his golf ball moved into the perfect position through the trees on the 9th hole. The tour would release an official statement 2 weeks later that ended with, "We conclude that Happy Gilmore did not correctly count his strokes on the 8th hole, and as such are stripping away both his victory from the record books and the gold jacket." The higher-ups with the tour took the easy way out and blamed Gilmore. Most people think they had more to do with it than they let on. Happy maintained his innocence by saying he didn't know about the infractions because he was new to golf. He pointed the finger at Doug, saying,
"Yeah, you.
You won't find Happy Gilmore as the 1996 Tour champion. You'd assume that you'd discover Shooter's name on there. But no. Donald, who wanted a lesser prison sentence for his transgressions, said the car incident was all Shooter's idea, who of course denied it. Shooter, not known for lying, admitted hiring Donald, but said this was all he told him to do.
You know, you should be put in a penalty box for sucking.
Only he and Donald know the truth, and this incident still follows McGavin today, where interviewers hint that it was his idea to hit Gilmore with the car.
I'm done with this, Mike.
You're gonna walk off the set?
Yeah, I'm walking off the set.
Wow, Shooter McGavin.
What ended up happening is they declared nobody as the 96 Tour champion. To date, that year has no winner, and that gold jacket sits unworn. The tour was in a terrible place with all the bad press going around. However, a young phenom was to make it all go away. Tiger Woods would inject golf with a new attitude and take the sport to massive heights. Quickly, most people forgot about Shooter McGavin's dominance, the short-lived craze of Happy Gilmore, and the tour's negligence. Happy would never return to the pro circuit and was investigated for Chubbs' death. Forensic investigators couldn't understand how Chubbs' body landed where it did after studying the trajectory of the fall and its position relative to the side of the building. They concluded that Chubbs Peterson either ran and jumped out of the window at a sprinter's pace or was violently pushed out, a conclusion that is still debated about today. Happy denied this, telling the same story he always did, saying Chubbs fell out backward after showing him an alligator's head. The case went to trial, and the prosecution painted Gilmore as an extremely angry man. Some even called him a violent sociopath. The prosecution called Doug, the president of the tour, as a witness to testify against Happy Gilmore, who willingly discussed many examples from Happy's time in pro golf. Doug even claimed he was scared of him and that he had a, quote, terrible temper. Gilmore's defense had a difficult time countering all the circumstantial behavioral evidence, and it would be up to a jury to decide his fate. They found Happy Gilmore guilty of second-degree murder, and he was sentenced to 17 years in prison. He was released for good behavior after 12. Because of the assault from Mr. Larson, who, by the way, would face prison time for what he did to Shooter at the Tour Championship, McGavin could never play golf the same way again. The multiple fractures, broken bones, and concussions caused damage to his body, which would not fully heal, and depression started to take hold. He spent much of his day poolside at his big house, but the mental strain of what had happened pushed him over the edge. Alcohol would become a significant factor in McGavin's life, being especially fond of extra dry martinis. He would be arrested on 2 separate occasions for DUI. And just like that, one of the best players in history disappeared from the world stage and the game he loved. After battling his inner demons for many years, Shooter McGavin has returned to his old self and will be the first to tell you he got screwed back in '96, admitting that the tour is to blame for what happened and not Happy Gilmore. These days, McGavin earns money from movies, TV, and sponsored appearances and has a cameo page where fans can get a bit of his time for a price. Whether the tour wants to admit it or not, Shooter is remembered as one of the most dominant players as a professional. He transcended the game and brought a confident professionalism to the sport. However, he got stumped by a league hell-bent on making more money at the expense of its most established star. Even Lee Trevino remembers that time on tour and wishes he had never been a part of it. Neither McGavin nor Gilmore gained anything from the '96 season. Shooter, the best player, lost his cool by hiring Donald after relentless heckling and failure by the tour. He then lost it all after a vicious assault from the fans and Mr. Larson. Happy gained quite a following, only to lose many of them after the Chubbs incident, and he never got to keep the gold jacket. And because the handshake deal with Shooter wasn't in writing, he never did get ownership of Grandma's house. However, he broke in once to drink with a few people. Chubbs lost genuine friendships with both men, and sadly, his life. Incredibly, the only one who came out unscathed from these events was the tour, but that was all thanks to the Tiger Woods effect. In recent years, both Shooter and Happy have returned to golf, McGavin playing for free at country clubs around the world, and Gilmore making money at the driving ranges. They still think of the jacket and the tour championship, and occasionally bond over having one common enemy, the tour. Happy blames them for using him as a puppet, and Doug for helping imprison him. Shooter blames both for everything. Pro golf continues to silence both men's careers. Watch a professional event today, and you will never hear their names mentioned, which is criminal, especially for McGavin, considering the legacy he would leave. Shooter put it perfectly when discussing the tour, its leadership, and Doug. When asked if they have ever done anything right, Shooter said,
No. Not at all.
Your ass.
Oh no! Oh no! 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 No!
For 5 weeks this time? You thought I was tough? This jump will kill you. Come on, get your head on your shoulders, man.
Jeez, that gotta hurt. Just stay out of my way, or you'll pay. Listen to what I say.